Welcome. I don't know if the audio is gonna work or not, but honestly, at this point, if my mic is working, if it's not, I don't really care. It is what it is. So let's get started, shall we? First of all, peep the campfire aesthetic. I got it. It's not a real fire, but it's something better than nothing, right? Today, I want to talk about something called the loop. A lot of you might be familiar with that term. You might have heard it. You might not have, but it's essentially where, for those of you who are on self improvement, it's one of your reasons, your negative reasons as to why you wanted to get onto self improvement to begin with, right? The loop is this idea that you're waking up every single day going through the same motion again and again and again and again and again and again and again, and it's just, you're tired of it. You know, it's true what they say sometimes. You wake up one day and you're like, something has to change. Something has to change. And you're just so tired of the stress piling on top of you. You're so tired of feeling the way you are, of not being the kind of person you can be, right? That's what we call the loop. Constantly in it, you're stuck in it, you feel like. And so, again, that's a large reason as to why you get onto self improvement. But a lot of you on self improvement might have also realized that sometimes you feel as though you are objectively improving. You're getting to your goals in terms of being able to track them, whether that be your physique, whether that be your business, whether that be, any sort of goal that you've set for yourself. You may be seeing yourself progress towards it, right? In some numerical fashion. The problem then becomes, why do I still feel like I'm in the loop? Why do I still feel the same? Why do I still feel like I'm still you know, in that place? It's almost like you feel as if though you've never improved. Like you're right back where you started, even though you've tried. But it's a little bit worse this time because you've given it a shot, you've tried, and you're putting your all into it, but you feel like you've come right back to where you were. Now, this could just be, us having a rough day here and there. That happens. But I think there's a few reasons as to why this could happen. One is you're on a disciplined schedule, so you might feel as though you're doing the same thing every day and it's just getting really, really, really boring. And there's something I picked up from Alex Emoji about that. He was like, becoming successful is a matter of doing the same thing. I think it was something along the lines of this, right? It was like doing the same thing over and over again for an excruciatingly long period of time without convincing yourself you're smarter than you are. And I thought about that. I was like, yeah, if you really think about it, right, self improvement is actually way more simple than we make it out to be. Once you learn about what self improvement is, it's actually not hard to understand as a concept. But to apply it is a completely different concept. Executing is completely different. There are so many things that stop you. Your mental health, the habits that you've made for yourself. Something I call AEMCs, artificially engineered mental constraints. And these things, they stop you. And to go into AEMCs more, they're essentially like, the best way I find to define it is you find that the work that you're about to do feels harder within your mind, or you make it out to be more in your mind than it actually is in real life. Because think about it, that's happened several different times. You sit down to do your work, right? And you can't get yourself to do it. That's what procrastination is. And we can't get ourselves to do it. Sit down, can't get ourselves to do it. Sit down, can't get ourselves to do it until, the due date or whatever it is motivates us enough to be like, okay, we do it. And fundamentally, the motivator that, you know what the motivation is? What all the motivation comes down to? It's death. You don't know why? You might say, well, that's extreme, Shay. Why is the motivation death? Think about it like this. I like thinking about it from an evolutionary psychology perspective, and this might be accurate, this might be not, but this is just the way that I like thinking about things. If you missed a due date for something, it means that you're one step closer to possibly failing out of the class. If you're one step out from failing out of the class, you might be one step away from failing out of, possibly college. And then not being able to be associated around your peers, being ostracized, technically speaking, because you're not within the same level anymore, right? And what did it mean back then to be ostracized from the tribe or from people or from your group? Doesn't matter what you called it, it meant death. Technically, basically, because you were left on your own, right? You had nothing or no one to fend for you. And sometimes loneliness feels the same way when you're on self-improvement. And that's the next thing. It's like the reason, and this is something that we have to, like a lot of us that are improving ourselves have to learn to deal with is, or develop proper emotional coping skills is the loneliness that comes with self-improvement, okay? Because one, you don't have the same emotional coping skills as someone who is out partying, okay? You can't resort to the drugs or alcohols, or at least you shouldn't, right? Because that's the emotional coping technique you use. That's what you use, or perhaps even video games as escapism, even though you can probably play like once every 6 months or something and actually have fun, but most of the time it's escapism. Most of the time that's what we're using it for. We don't want to engage in reality, and to be fair, reality sucks sometimes. And like people suck sometimes, even when you're on self-improvement. So I can't completely and utterly blame you, and I get it. So that is a huge part of it, is that loneliness is why you feel like you might be back into the loop again, but you're not. And this is a very, very tricky thing, because you're trying to find friends that see the same thing as you, that want the same things as you, but there's very few of them, because in this point in life, it's not very common to want to get your stuff together. And if it is, then it means that sometimes people that want to get their shit together, right, they're in a completely separate domain from you. Like they're working on things, they're on a different branch, they're on a different part of life. And sometimes you might not even get along with them, things of that nature. But even with all that, I don't think we should give hope up in terms of socializing. We should have to be careful not to let people influence us back down to who we used to be and then back into the loop. So let's say we're talking to a couple of people and they tend to be the party kinds, which is fine. Like everybody's in their own zone during their own period of time. But you just don't want that kind of energy to infiltrate you. Or else, and I know how voodoo, how spiritual, how beat bullshit that sounds, but understand that it's happened to me plenty of times, right? Even now, coming back on campus, I realize that there's so many places freshman year that for me are associated with just a lot of pain and anxiety, and I try to avoid them completely. But this semester I was like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna go where I want to, when I want to, don't care who I see, don't care who I don't like, that I don't want to interact with, it doesn't matter. I'll go there, and I'll sit down, and I'll do my work, right? But like I said, I don't want to digress too far into something else, but essentially you're just, you're lost in the sauce. You're lost in the sauce. And what do I mean by that? I took a drastic turn, right? It's so hard to cope with the loneliness of self-improvement sometimes, because you're not good enough to be with the people that have reached this higher, area of self-improvement. And then you might not be The people that are below that standard might not be good for you. The ones that are still partying, doing all the garbage, you know what I'm talking about, right? All the instant gratification activities, they might still not be good for you. So it's like a hard balance. It's like, what do I do? And then, you know, sometimes I wonder if my ego's at play there. I mean, to some degree it is, right? Because ego is used to see where you are in the pecking order or the hierarchy, um, within either your peers or the workplace. Within the workplace, it's a lot more evident. But with peers and things like that, it's not as evident. Um, it might seem that way. Your ego might make you out to be inferior than someone or superior than someone. But what we have to understand about that is the fact that you might be superior in a certain skill set to someone, but that does not make you superior to them, right? Someone might be superior to you in his skill set, but that does not make them superior to you. Same thing with inferiority, right? You simply are. You are a being. And you're too different to be able to be comparable with anybody else, but that doesn't mean that you're not in competition with people, you know, and that's a hard thing to understand. It doesn't make sense at first, but that's just how it is. And that's why, you know, I think a big part of why Peterson says, you know, compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not who someone else is today. Because it's too hard to do that. It's actually really, really difficult. And I know what people say sometimes, it's like, oh no, you know, you're in competition with all these people, so like, hustle. That's understandable, but like, that's the only actual way to track your progress. Now, you don't have to delude yourself that you're not competing with other people. And I know this is digressing into something else, but this is just how late night candle talks are going to be. I'm going to be honest with you. And I'll come back to the main point of the loop. But yeah, all of this goes into that. All of this comes back into the loop. It's like so hard with your ego, with knowing that there's people that you could associate with, you just haven't found them yet. And then with knowing that there are people you could associate with, but you might do it in desperation, right? So it's very, very hard to find that balance, and I understand. What else? One thing that I've also realized in one of my previous stages in my life is the reason we tend to come back to the loop, and let's just define the loop as all the instant gratification activities we used to do that make us feel like we're constantly in this like this struggle, this shithole, like we're getting pleasure that's unearned, right? That's what instant gratification is, and we're tumbling down, spiraling down this road of just, you know, hedonism, and it doesn't feel good because we haven't earned it. It's like getting a Ferrari for $0. Yeah, sure, it's great and lovely at the beginning, but like, who's gonna pay the insurance on that? You haven't earned it, right? Rather than actually buying it and being like, I worked myself up to this, you know? So I can't remember where I was trying to go with that, but what I'm trying to say is we're afraid of being in this loop, and one of the things that really benefited me, and I'm going to go back to doing this again, was doing this one journal that extremely helped me. Like, wow, I can't even like put words together. Like, that's how much it helped me, right? It was essentially this journal where I call it declarative journaling, or a declaration journal. And as the meaning implies, right? It's essentially where you write to yourself about the things that you're quitting, and you're quitting for a period of time, like hardcore. Don't try this at home, kids. You're quitting hardcore. And for example, for a lot of you that could be for a lot of you that could be like a lot of your miniature vices, and I'll say why I'm saying miniature vices as compared to like your big vices, right? Some addictions are very easily broken off by just declaring to yourself that you're not going to do them, because then you haven't kept it vague. You're not keeping it vague and foggy. It's evident you're not going to do it, and that's it. And I referred back to that journal so many times. I remember it's very, very cringy writing, the way I write it to myself. Like most people would think it's cringe, but it works for me. So write in whatever way you think is great. But essentially, the way I would do this declarative journaling is I would write out things that I wanted to quit completely. So that'd be like weed, pornography, that'd be like TV shows, what else? And I'm not saying you have to quit like women approaching or like anything to do with women, okay? And I'm not saying you have to quit a lot of these things permanently, although I think some of them you should, and I have my reasons for them, but I want you to be able to critically think and be able to have your own reasons as to why, even if they mimic mine, but like come to that reasoning, like critically think. I don't want you to just grab that information from me and be like, okay, sick. But there's reason as to why I think certain ones, like for example, um, pornography can be cut out like immediately. The desperation to actually cut it out of your life is what feeds it entirely, and that's something I notice with myself as well. Is the more desperately I wanted it out, the more I became a victim to it. And there was periods in my life where I was like, oh, it's okay. It means that I'm just doing it way less than what I did before, and what I did last year. Therefore, I'm improving. If I do it way less, then I'm improving, and I'm not gonna get emotional about it. I did that before, and that does not work. That does not help. Okay, not the move. So there's some vices you can't cut out completely and immediately because the mindset for them does not work towards them. Now, if you can go cold turkey with that and you feel as if though it's not like a strong habit of yours, by all means, everyone's different, right? So you have certain vices, and you need to decide whether or not those are something you can immediately cut out, or those are something you need to progressively deload. Okay, because trying to go cold turkey can be counterintuitive sometimes, and you might end up digging yourself down a deeper hole. So I think for pornography addiction, that's one of them. Now, when it comes to, let's say, video games, something like that for me was very easily, like, I was able to cut that out very, very easily. Not a problem for me. And then I'll come back like every 6 months or so. Like I'm literally called by my online friends, I'm called the ghost, because I literally don't show up. I don't do anything. Like I'll pull up once every 6 months, enjoy to the fullest. I'll have a blast, and then I'll get off again because I'm like, oh, the moment I stop having fun, which is usually like a few days in, I'm like, okay, I'm done. Boom. And then I go back to it. And during that time, mind you, I'm still grinding, right? So what I'm trying to say is like, before I get too ahead of myself and go through all these like addictions and whatnot, I think why you catch yourself in the loop is because you're keeping yourself vague and foggy, and there's a part of you that wants to indulge in certain things. There's a part of you that when you change your environments like I did, I wanted to get involved with certain things, and it's very, very tempting. Some of those things can be very good for you, like friendships. I don't want to completely isolate myself either. I think that's a very, very bad thing for my mental health. Because one thing I've noticed is take it from someone who's at peak point with their diet, hasn't missed a single day from the 2 months that I've been dieting. I haven't missed like pretty much, I think I've missed one day. I've had all my meals. I've gone to the gym. I've meditated, and I still struggled because I lacked social connection. So now I'm like trying to invite people more, like trying to talk to people more. I think that's a good thing. But again, like it's just gonna take time to find those people, the right ones that want to be able to climb up with you and have the same ambition as you. So, but as long as you're not associating with complete degenerates, I think you'll be fine. My biggest thing, some of my biggest vices have always been for me personally, and I even struggle to say this on camera, like I'm observing my mind and what it's saying. It's women. I am terrible at controlling myself when it comes to that, okay? That has been the case in the past, and that has been the case now, even. And I have to actively observe my brain and tell myself, I'm not going to do that. Like it's not interacting with women particularly. I can do that. There's no problem with that. It's more so what my brain tells me of the possibility of like getting to know them. I'm like, nope, I'm not doing that. Not enough time, not enough energy. And the problem becomes that my mind likes focusing on that. As someone who grew with, I'm a psych major, so I like talking about this a lot. I grew up as someone who has like more of an anxious attachment style, which means you'll basically cling to any love you'll find, right? And so my brain has a proclivity to do that with women I find are meet a particular standard of mine. And what I started to notice was that I, in response to that, would just higher in my standards. Like I would raise my standards. But I think what that was a way for me to be like, okay, that wasn't actually what I was doing. I convinced myself I was raising my standards because I want self improvement and I'm better. But no, the reason I was actually raising my standards was because I didn't want anybody to be able to meet them so that I couldn't get hurt and it'd be easier for me to be lonely. That's why I was doing it. And I realized that I was like, whoa, because someone was actually able to meet those standards over this past winter break, and I almost completely and utterly lost my shit. Again, mind you, I have like an anxious attachment style. So for me, I get very, very attached very, very quickly, which I see as a double-edged sword because I'm like, okay, this could be great if I know who I'm committing to, but this could also suck if I don't. And this could put me in the complete opposite trajectory. It could bring me back into the loop, and that's not what I want. So that's where declarative journaling comes in. I tell myself, nope. And when I do that, I'm not delusional. Now I'm not coping. I'm like, okay, I'm actually not going to do that. Even if I interact with a woman, which I find is like perfectly fine. Even if I do, in my mind, there is no chance in hell that I'm going to get to know them and not because like they're a terrible person or anything like that or anything weird about them or anything like that. Like those days are behind me, like past the days of like being a hateful guy. But for me now it's more like I want to focus on this thing, and anything that takes my focus away from it, I cannot afford to have that. So it's more of like a mental weakness rather than like, for me at least, rather than me like surrounding myself, because I already don't talk to enough people. So for me, that's an issue. So I need to start talking to more people. But mentally, I need to keep that in mind that like I'm not going to allow this to lead me astray. And the way I do that is when I put it on paper, it is something I've translated from a thought to reality. So now I keep that in mind, and there's no way that I go back on it. And I noticed that when I did this journaling technique, I noticed that because I would refer back to a day and after over and over and over again. I think what I need to do now is just update it again. I need to update it because a lot of my priorities have changed. And of course I'm gonna abstain from the same things, alcohol, never had a sip of it in my life, so easy. Again, one of the easy vices, cut it out, boom. Weed, sure, had it, cut it out, boom, easy. Video games, a little bit of a struggle, easy, cut it out. But then it always comes down to the last vice that you like sacrifice and stuff like that. So that's when it gets hard, especially when you get rid of all the other vices, because at least like you're able to take some of your like degenerate energy out on some of the other vices. But now that you get rid of those, the main vice becomes the thing that gets even harder to get rid of because it's like the only thing you have. So that main vice, whatever it is for you, you need to progressively deload and be a lot smarter about it. You can't just cold turkey it and become desperate, because that's exactly what's keeping you in the loop. Yeah. And I'm gonna be honest, some of these things, like for example, video games, I can't give you like complete and utter detailed advice about that, because for me it was a lot easier than perhaps it would be for you. Okay. I could for like certain things, like for example, um, again, the declarative journaling, I said to like, you know, be on your shit and not get distracted by like dating or like wanting to be around women, things like that, or like pornography, things of that nature, right? So you have to find the vice that, like, once you get rid of all the other tiny vices, like, at least bare minimum declare to yourself that you won't partake in any of the tiny vices that you give to yourself. Any of those that you know you can cut out without even like a thought, like, just write that down on paper. Write it down on paper. You're like, okay, I'm committing to this. What am I giving up? And it is all in from here. I am going all in. You know, people talk about how it's very, very cringy to have those, like, you know, those reels on Instagram where it says like 2023 was a warm up, but this year is like we're going all in. No, bro, do it. Commit yourself, go all in. Because the more you grow up, the less time I feel like any of us have to fuck around. We can't fuck around. You know how it goes. The linear correlation of the more you fuck around, the more you find out. There you go. Boom. Keep it simple. Keep it easy. Right. So I think a lot of us simply, again, I'll reiterate it, need to declare to ourselves that we're going to get rid of this, which is probably most instant gratification activities that we partake in, and we're going to partake in this instead. Now, that in and of itself will be enough. You don't have to have some sort of, like, you can of course have big goals and big dreams, but the biggest advice I'll give you when it comes to having some sort of dream, the way to make, or goal, the way to make a plan about it is, how I think about a plan is, what are the daily things I need to do to eventually achieve it? Because if you do the daily things you need to do, you can't lose. Think about it. If you do the daily things you need to do, you can't lose. And that way your brain simplifies it too. It's like, oh, if I do this every single day, that's all I need to do to be able to win. And that's something that's maintainable, sustainable, and you're doing it constantly, so you're getting in hours every single day and you're not getting rusty. And that's something I learned about business. I know, like, it's pissing me off how much I'm failing at business right now. It's truly pissing me off because I'm seeing the numbers on my spreadsheet and I'm like, damn, that could be a lot better. But at least, you know, I'm fine with failing as long as I know that, like, hey, this is what I need to be doing. I'm not doing it. Okay, the pain and discomfort of that is going to make me want to do it even more. And the pain and discomfort of being back in that loop again that I cannot stand for the life of me, and I don't want to go back to. Like, there's a voice in my head that's screaming, no, no, no. Like, it's like crying, like, I cannot go back there. Like, no way. That's what I want to stay away from. And so that should be enough motivation. You're going to wake, and if you don't have it now, you're going to wake up someday and you're going to think about what I said. You're going to think about how you're tired of this shit. And that's when that declarative journaling, I'm telling you right now, is going to help a lot. Because maybe some of your declarations come out to be wrong. You might say, well, I don't know if I'll stick to that. You'll fail miserably. I have plenty of times. I'm still failing. But at least you'll cut out some of your grander vices. You'll make some improvement, and you won't keep yourself vague and foggy to allow yourself to get away with bullshit that you've been allowing yourself to get away with. Yeah. That's pretty much all I had for you. All right. Take it easy. Good night.